All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about software engineering. We're going to explore where it came from, what it's all about, and how it took the digital world from, well, total chaos to a disciplined craft.
So let me kick things off with a question for you. Is just writing code the same thing as actually building software? It sounds simple, right? But the answer to that question is really the whole reason software engineering even exists. So keep that in the back of your mind.
To really get this, we've got to go back in time, to what you could honestly call the Wild West of code. I mean, there were no rules, no guidebooks, just some really brilliant people making it all up as they went along.
Yeah, think about it. The 1950s. Computers are these massive, room-sized machines, and making software for them, it wasn't really seen as a science. It was more like an art, a craft that was done completely on the fly. You had a problem, you wrote some code, and that was that. But, that kind of freestyle approach, it just wasn't going to last. As the world started to depend more and more on computers, the industry pretty much slammed right into a wall, a period we now call the software crisis. See, here's the thing. The demand for bigger, way more complex software was just exploding, but the methods people were using to create it were stuck in the past. That same artistic, let's just wing it approach that worked fine for little programs was causing these huge, new systems to completely fall apart.
And this wasn't just a bad year or two. We're talking about a long, painful slog. It kicked off in the mid-60s with projects starting to fail all over the place. Through the 70s, the problems just got bigger and bigger. And by the mid-80s, it hit a breaking point. Something had to change.
And man, the signs were everywhere. You had projects just bleeding money, always late, and if you were lucky enough to actually get something delivered, it was probably a buggy mess that was a total nightmare to maintain. It was pure chaos.
But sometimes it's out of total chaos that the best ideas come from. The industry looked around and thought, wait a minute, how do other fields build big, complicated things that don't fall apart? And the answer was engineering.
And that's how we got the formal definition of software engineering. The key takeaway here is that it's not just about coding. It's about applying scientific, systematic principles to the entire life cycle of a piece of software, from the first sketch on a napkin all the way to maintaining it years later.
This was the big light bulb moment. The solution wasn't to code harder, it was to code smarter. To stop treating software like a disorganized hobby and start treating it like a real, formal engineering discipline with rules, standards, and predictable results.
And this gave birth to structured processes, like what we call the Software Development Lifecycle, or SDLC. So instead of just diving in and coding, there was now a playbook. First, you figure out what you actually need to build. Then, you design it. Then you build it. And finally, you test the heck out of it. It brought order to the chaos.
And of course, technology helped out too. Around the mid-80s, you started seeing these things called CASE tools, which stands for Computer-Aided Software Engineering. Basically, software designed to help you build software in this new, organized way.
So all of this change created new roles, which brings us to a really common question today. What's the difference between a software engineer and a software developer? Are they the same thing? Well, not exactly.
Okay, let's be real. In day-to-day conversation, people use these terms interchangeably all the time. And honestly, that's usually fine. But if we're getting specific, there are some important differences in what they do and how they think, and it all goes back to that software crisis.
This breaks it down really nicely. Think of the engineer as the architect of a skyscraper. They're focused on the entire system, the foundation, the structure, how all the floors connect. A developer, on the other hand, is more like a master craftsperson, a specialist who comes in to build out a specific feature perfectly within that larger plan.
Right, so this quote really hits the nail on the head. An engineer is thinking about the whole blueprint, while a developer is focused on executing parts of that blueprint brilliantly. Both roles are absolutely crucial, they're just working at different levels of scale.
Okay, so now that we've kind of drawn that line in the sand, let's really zero in on the role of the software engineer. What's actually on their plate day to day?
And as you can see, it's a whole lot more than just writing code. Sure, they do that, but they're also designing the system's architecture, they're responsible for keeping it running and updated over its entire life, they ensure quality through testing, and, this is a big one, they're constantly talking with clients, security teams, and everyone else involved.
So really, it's this incredible blend of skills. You have to be an architect, a creator, and a collaborator all rolled into one. That's the discipline that keeps our digital world from falling back into that early chaos.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The next time you open your favorite app, just take a second and think about what's under the hood. Is it just a bunch of code that someone hammered out, or is it a carefully crafted system, the work of a digital architect? And now you know the difference.